I can't provide a verbatim imitation of a living author's exact style, but I can create an apt, original script that captures some of the high-level qualities often associated with that kind of content: intense audience engagement, behavioral analysis, confidence, psychological framing, storytelling, and persuasive delivery. Have you ever noticed that the people everyone worries about are usually the loud ones? The narcissist, the manipulator, the aggressive personality, the person who dominates conversations and demands attention. Those are the obvious threats. Those are the people everyone can see. But the most powerful transformations in human behavior almost never happen in the spotlight. They happen quietly. They happen beneath the surface. They happen in people who have spent years observing instead of speaking, understanding instead of reacting, and absorbing instead of demanding. There is a stage in the evolution of an empath that very few people ever reach. Most empaths spend their entire lives trapped in earlier phases, constantly giving, constantly rescuing, constantly sacrificing themselves for people who would never do the same for them. They become exhausted. They become confused. They become trapped in cycles of disappointment because they mistake understanding for obligation. They believe that because they can see someone's pain, they are required to carry it. But then something happens. A threshold is crossed. A realization emerges. And when that realization fully matures, the empath enters what many would call the Sophia stage. The name itself is associated with wisdom, but not the kind of wisdom people usually imagine. This is not knowledge collected from books. This is not information gathered from experts. This is wisdom forged through repeated exposure to human nature. It is the wisdom that comes from being lied to and recognizing the pattern, being betrayed and understanding the motive, being manipulated and finally seeing the mechanism behind the manipulation. Before reaching this stage, the empath is often predictable. Someone is hurting. The empath helps. Someone is struggling. The empath intervenes. Someone is emotionally overwhelmed. The empath absorbs the burden, again and again, year after year. The empath becomes a refuge for everyone around them. The problem is that many people don't visit a refuge because they respect it. They visit because they need something from it. That distinction changes everything. The early stage empath believes that understanding people automatically creates connection. The Sophia stage empath understands something far more important. Understanding people reveals who deserves connection. Think about that difference for a moment. One mindset opens the door for everyone. The other mindset evaluates who should be allowed through it. Most people never develop this filter. Most people continue operating from emotional impulse. They feel someone's sadness and immediately move toward it. They feel someone's loneliness and immediately attempt to solve it. They feel someone's fear and immediately begin carrying it. The Sophia stage empath experiences something different. They still perceive the emotion. They still recognize the pain. But they no longer confuse recognition with responsibility. That distinction makes them extraordinarily difficult to control. Manipulation relies on predictable emotional reactions. If I know exactly what button to push, I know exactly what outcome I'll get. If guilt always works on you, guilt becomes the weapon. If sympathy always works on you, sympathy becomes the weapon. If fear always works on you, fear becomes the weapon. The Sophia stage empath removes the weapon. Not because they become cold, not because they become uncaring, but because they become conscious. And consciousness changes the entire game. One of the most dangerous qualities of this stage is that the empath develops an unusual relationship with silence. Earlier versions of themselves often felt compelled to explain. They explained their intentions. They explained their feelings. They explained their decisions. They explained their boundaries. They explained themselves to people who had already decided not to understand. Then one day they realized something. People who genuinely care about understanding rarely require endless explanations. People who are committed to misunderstanding will never be satisfied, regardless of how much explanation they receive. That realization creates a profound shift. The empath stops defending reality to people invested in fantasy. The empath stops arguing with distortions. The empath stops negotiating with emotional hostage-takers. And suddenly their silence becomes more powerful than their words ever were. This unsettles people, especially manipulators. Manipulators survive by creating movement, confusion, chaos, reaction, emotion. The Sophia stage empath becomes increasingly difficult to move. Imagine trying to push a mountain. That's how it feels to someone attempting to emotionally control a mature empath. The old strategies stop working. The guilt doesn't land. The intimidation doesn't land. The passive aggression doesn't land. The emotional theatrics don't land. Not because the empath fails to notice them, because they notice them immediately. Years of emotional observation have sharpened their perception to an extraordinary degree. Most people hear words. The Sophia stage empath hears motivation. Most people observe behavior. The Sophia stage empath observes patterns. Most people evaluate what happened. The Sophia stage empath evaluates why it happened. That difference creates a level of awareness that often appears almost supernatural to others. People begin saying things like, "How did you know?" But the empath didn't know. They observed. They noticed. They connected dots. While everyone else was distracted by the performance, the empath was studying the mechanism behind it. One of the biggest myths about empathy is that it makes people weak. In reality, untrained empathy creates vulnerability. Mature empathy creates strategic awareness. Those are completely different conditions. An untrained empath feels everyone's emotions and becomes overwhelmed. A mature empath feels the emotional environment without drowning in it. Imagine standing in the rain. The inexperienced empath absorbs every drop. The Sophia stage empath understands weather. They recognize the storm without becoming the storm. That emotional separation changes every relationship in their life. For the first time, they stop asking, "How can I make this person happy?" And they start asking, "Is this person healthy enough to have access to me?" That question terrifies toxic people, because toxic people thrive when access is automatic. Healthy people respect boundaries. Unhealthy people resent them. The Sophia stage empath learns to watch reactions carefully, especially reactions to boundaries. A boundary reveals more about a person than almost any conversation ever could. Tell someone yes, and you learn very little. Tell someone no, and you learn everything. You learn how they handle disappointment. You learn how they handle frustration. You learn whether they respect autonomy. You learn whether their kindness was genuine or transactional. And once the empath sees that information, they cannot unsee it. This is where many people become uncomfortable. Because the Sophia stage empath stops participating in illusions. They stop pretending unhealthy dynamics are healthy. They stop pretending disrespect is accidental when it is clearly intentional. They stop pretending inconsistency is confusion when it is clearly strategy. And perhaps most importantly, they stop pretending potential matters more than behavior. That lesson alone takes some empaths decades to learn. Potential is seductive. Potential creates hope. Potential creates fantasies about who someone could become. Behavior reveals who they currently are. The Sophia stage empath learns to trust behavior. Repeated behavior. Consistent behavior. Observable behavior. Not promises. Not speeches. Not emotional performances. Behavior. That shift creates a tremendous amount of personal power. Power not in the sense of domination. Power in the sense of clarity. Clarity is one of the most underestimated forces in human psychology. Confused people are controllable. Clear people are not. Confused people hesitate. Clear people act. Confused people seek permission. Clear people seek truth. The Sophia stage empath becomes increasingly clear. Not because life becomes easier, because life teaches them repeatedly that confusion carries a cost. Every ignored intuition carries a cost. Every dismissed red flag carries a cost. Every compromised boundary carries a cost. Eventually, those costs become too expensive, and the empath changes. What makes this stage so rare is that it requires suffering to be transformed into wisdom rather than bitterness. Many people experience pain. Not everyone learns from it. Many people experience betrayal. Not everyone extracts understanding from it. Many people encounter manipulation. Not everyone develops discernment because of it. Some become cynical. Some become hardened. Some become distrustful. The Sophia stage empath becomes aware. Awareness is different from cynicism. Cynicism says nobody can be trusted. Awareness says trust should be earned. Cynicism closes every door. Awareness installs locks. That distinction matters, because despite all the growth, the Sophia stage empath does not lose their capacity for compassion. In many ways, their compassion becomes deeper than ever before. But now it is guided by wisdom. Compassion without wisdom becomes self-destruction. Wisdom without compassion becomes isolation. The Sophia stage empath integrates both. This creates a personality that many people struggle to categorize. They are kind but difficult to manipulate, warm but not naive, open but selective, compassionate but firm, understanding but not permissive. People expect empathy to come packaged with weakness. When they encounter empathy paired with strength, it disrupts their assumptions. That disruption often reveals hidden agendas. Watch what happens when someone realizes emotional manipulation no longer works. Watch their frustration. Watch their confusion. Watch their escalation. The Sophia stage empath notices all of it, because they understand a fundamental principle of human behavior. When a strategy stops working, people often reveal themselves by trying harder. The guilt trip becomes stronger. The pressure becomes stronger. The performance becomes stronger. The emotional drama becomes stronger. And with every escalation, the empath gathers more information. Not emotionally, behaviorally. This is one reason people describe the Sophia stage empath as dangerous. Not dangerous because they attack. Dangerous because they see. There is immense power in seeing clearly, especially in a world built on impression management. Most people are busy creating images. The Sophia stage empath is studying patterns. Images are temporary. Patterns are reliable. A person can fake confidence for a day. Patterns reveal insecurity. A person can fake kindness for a week. Patterns reveal entitlement. A person can fake honesty during a conversation. Patterns reveal deception. The empath learns to trust patterns. This ability extends beyond relationships. It affects careers, leadership, friendships, communities. The Sophia stage empath often becomes extraordinarily skilled at reading group dynamics. They can sense unspoken tension. They can identify hidden alliances. They can recognize status games before others become aware they are occurring. Again, not because of magic, because of observation. Years of emotional attention create remarkable pattern recognition. Most people are listening to what is said. The empath is watching what changes when certain people enter the room. Most people focus on statements. The empath focuses on reactions. Most people analyze events. The empath analyzes incentives. This produces a level of social intelligence that is often underestimated. People mistake quietness for ignorance. They mistake observation for passivity. They mistake patience for weakness, until they discover otherwise. Another fascinating shift occurs during this stage. The empath stops needing universal approval. This may be one of the hardest lessons of all. Earlier stages often involve a desperate desire to be understood, to be liked, to be appreciated, to be accepted. The Sophia stage empath recognizes a difficult truth. Not everyone deserves access. Not everyone deserves agreement. Not everyone deserves explanation. Not everyone deserves proximity. That realization feels liberating. Imagine carrying hundreds of invisible contracts your entire life. Contracts requiring you to keep everyone comfortable, everyone happy, everyone satisfied. Then imagine realizing those contracts never existed. The weight disappears. The empath becomes lighter, stronger, more authentic. Ironically, this authenticity often attracts healthier people. Healthy individuals are drawn toward clarity, toward consistency, toward emotional maturity. The Sophia stage empath begins building relationships based on mutual respect rather than emotional dependency. This changes everything. Dependency says, I need you to survive. Respect says, I value you while respecting your freedom. Dependency creates control. Respect creates connection. The Sophia stage empath increasingly chooses connection over control, even when it means walking away, especially when it means walking away. One of the most misunderstood behaviors at this stage is detachment. People often interpret detachment as a lack of caring. In reality, healthy detachment is often evidence of emotional mastery. The empath learns that caring deeply does not require clinging tightly. You can love someone and still leave. You can understand someone and still say no. You can forgive someone and still refuse access. You can wish someone well and still recognize they are not safe. These truths feel contradictory until they are lived. Then they become obvious. The Sophia stage empath becomes comfortable with contradictions. Human beings are complicated. Someone can be wounded and harmful. Someone can be sincere and wrong. Someone can be loving and unhealthy. Someone can have good intentions and terrible behavior. The mature empath learns to hold multiple truths simultaneously. This prevents simplistic thinking. It prevents idealization. It prevents emotional blindness. And perhaps most importantly, it prevents self-betrayal. Self-betrayal is one of the great hidden wounds of empathy. Many empaths spend years abandoning themselves to rescue others, ignoring intuition, ignoring exhaustion, ignoring discomfort, ignoring truth. The Sophia stage empath stops abandoning themselves. That single change alters every aspect of their existence. Because once you stop betraying yourself, you begin noticing who benefited from your self-betrayal. That awareness can be shocking. Some relationships disappear. Some friendships fade. Some family dynamics transform. Not because the empath became cruel, because the empath became unavailable for exploitation. There is a profound difference. The people who truly care adapt. The people who benefited from the old version resist. Resistance becomes information, and information becomes freedom. At this stage, the empath develops an almost surgical precision with attention. Attention is currency. Attention is energy. Attention is life. Most people give it away carelessly. The Sophia stage empath becomes selective. They recognize that whatever receives attention grows. Drama grows. Conflict grows. Negativity grows. Purpose grows. Peace grows. Connection grows. The direction depends on the target, so they become intentional. This intentionality creates a calm presence that others often find intimidating. Not because the empath is trying to intimidate anyone, because certainty unsettles people who rely on confusion. Stillness unsettles people who rely on chaos. Boundaries unsettle people who rely on access. Truth unsettles people who rely on illusion. The Sophia stage empath becomes a mirror. And many people do not enjoy mirrors. A mirror does not attack. A mirror reveals. Revelation is often enough. When someone stands in front of a truly aware person, their own behavior becomes difficult to ignore. Their inconsistencies become visible. Their motives become visible. Their patterns become visible. Not because the empath exposes them publicly, because presence itself becomes revealing. This is why some individuals feel inexplicably uncomfortable around highly evolved empaths. Nothing has been said. Nothing has been accused. Nothing has been challenged. Yet discomfort appears. Why? Because awareness changes the environment. People sense when they are being observed at a deeper level than they are accustomed to. Not judged. Observed. And observation has power. Human behavior changes when observation increases. The Sophia stage empath understands this instinctively. Not through theory. Through experience. Through years of witnessing the same patterns repeat across different faces, different names, different circumstances. The details change. The mechanisms remain. That realization creates humility, because the empath begins recognizing universal aspects of human nature, including their own. This is another critical difference. They no longer view themselves as separate from the patterns they observe. They examine themselves with the same honesty. Their ego becomes less invested in being right, more invested in being accurate, less invested in winning, more invested in understanding, less invested in image, more invested in truth. That self-awareness makes growth possible, because blind spots shrink, defensiveness decreases, curiosity increases, and growth accelerates. The Sophia stage empath becomes a student of reality, not fantasy, not wishful thinking. Reality. What is actually happening? What is actually being demonstrated? What is actually true? Reality becomes more important than comfort. That principle sounds simple. It is not. Most people unconsciously choose comfort. The empath learns to choose truth, even when truth hurts. Especially when truth hurts. Because temporary discomfort is often the price of long-term freedom. And freedom becomes increasingly valuable. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from performance. Freedom from emotional obligations that never belong to them. Freedom from becoming responsible for the choices of others. This freedom changes their energy. People notice it. They may not understand it, but they notice it. There is less desperation, less chasing, less proving, less convincing. The empath no longer needs to force outcomes. They trust observation. They trust patterns. They trust time. Time reveals nearly everything. Masks slip. Motives emerge. Patterns repeat. Truth surfaces. The Sophia stage empath learns patience because they understand the revealing nature of time. They do not rush to judgment, but neither do they ignore evidence. They simply watch. And watching provides extraordinary information. By the time others finally recognize what is happening, the empath often noticed it months earlier. Not because they possess special powers, because they paid attention when everyone else was distracted, because they listened when everyone else was speaking, because they observed when everyone else was reacting. And perhaps that is the deepest secret of this stage. The Sophia stage empath is not powerful because they control people. They are powerful because people no longer control them. Their emotions belong to them. Their attention belongs to them. Their choices belong to them. Their boundaries belong to them. Their peace belongs to them. And once a person reaches that level of ownership, they become extraordinarily difficult to influence through fear, guilt, pressure, manipulation, approval, rejection, praise, criticism, or emotional chaos. They understand the game without needing to play it. They recognize the pattern without needing to participate in it. They can stand in the middle of emotional storms and remain connected to themselves. And that is precisely why this stage remains so rare. Most people spend their lives searching for power in status, control, wealth, recognition, or influence, while the Sophia stage empath discovers a different kind of power entirely. The power that emerges when nothing outside of you can easily dictate what happens inside of you. When perception becomes sharper than persuasion. When discernment becomes stronger than desire. When wisdom becomes stronger than impulse. And when the need to save everyone finally gives way to the ability to see everyone clearly.